Alrighty, guys. So, Kurzgesagt, I think is how you pronounce it. Fantastic channel. Love their videos, love their content, make some of the best science content I've seen on this side of YouTube. Really an enjoyer of their videos, you could call me. Absolutely. And they recently put out a video that everybody's been recommending that I watch called Good News. We will fix climate change. Now, I admit that climate change is one of those issues that has me a little bit down in the dumps, but apparently there's good news, so we're going to watch this video. I love this channel. I watch a lot of their videos. I haven't seen this one yet, and yeah, frankly, I'm excited that I finally get to watch a Kurzgesagt video on stream. It's also German. It is also a German channel. How do I pronounce Kurzgesagt? Kurzgesagt. Is it pronounced Kurzgesagt? Kurzgesagt, I think is how it's pronounced.
Our home is burning.
True.
Rapid climate change is destabilizing our world. It seems our emissions will not fall quickly enough to avoid runaway warming, and we may soon hit...
It's actually a myth. It can be stopped, and the idea that we can't stop it and it's too late only makes the problem worse. It only makes us apathetic and less willing to solve the problem. I don't like the narrative that we're doomed. You can't doom her too hard, otherwise you give up.
Tipping points that will lead to the collapse of ecosystems and our civilization. While scientists, activists, and much of the younger generation urge action, it appears most politicians are not committed to doing anything meaningful, while the fossil fuel industry still works actively against change. It seems
like something that we have to acknowledge is that the human lifetime is so short, and when you like... I'm gonna try to steel man like these little evil birds here. Like, if you're in the position of some like evil multi-billionaire like oil baron and you're just making shit tons of money off of natural gas and fossil fuel, you're asking a lot of them to give up their infinite wealth essentially in order to save a planet that they will die before they ever get to see the fruits of. What you're asking for is a very selfless and like heroic action from these people. It's something they should do, but I think it's worth acknowledging. You are asking a lot of a human being who has everything to give up their ability to have that everything in order to prolong the life of people that will live after they die. You're asking somebody to lower their quality of living, even if it's just a little bit, lower their quality of living and their finite lifespan in order to improve the quality of living of other people after they've died. And if they don't believe in an afterlife, there's not much of a point in doing that. You'd probably be very much in the belief of get as much pleasure in my life for as long as I can, and fuck it, what happens to the planet. It's probably the mindset of a lot of these people, unironically.
Humanity can't overcome its greed and obsession with short-term profit and personal gain to save itself. And so for many, the future looks grim and hopeless. Young people feel particularly anxious and depressed. Instead of looking ahead to a lifetime of opportunity, they wonder if they will even have a future, or if they should bring kids into this world. It's an age of doom and hopelessness, and giving up seems the only sensible thing to do. But
I remember back when everyone was worried about overpopulation, like the 80s and 90s were rife with like dystopian films about the future where overpopulation has been a huge issue. But the horrible economy and climate change has done a real good job of leveling out population growth, hasn't it? In fact, I think the human population is supposed to like even out at about 11 billion on average in the next like 30 or 40 years. Like 11 billion is going to be about the balanced out average that we're probably going to be sitting at for centuries. 11 billion humans on Earth.
That's not true. You are not doomed. Humanity is not doomed. Despite
overpopulation is a myth,
the seriousness of the situation, for years positive trends have accumulated, and there is finally some good news and a clear path towards our collective climate goals. Welcome to our TED Talk. Please watch this video to the end. Check out our detailed sources afterwards to learn more. Okay, let's start with the scariest things. Cancelling the apocalypse.
Yeah, let's do that.
Some of the most widely shared stories about climate change are that it is an existential threat, the end of human civilization, and maybe even our own extinction event, and that it's...
Okay, my understanding is realistically, the the thing that we're going to see a huge problem with in our lifetimes are going to be like insanely huge refugee crises all around the world. There are entire nations with tens to hundreds of millions of people in their population that are expected to be underwater in the next few decades. Nations, island nations in the Pacific, expected to be underwater in the next few decades. Nations with populations ranging from the tens of millions to hundreds of millions. That is going to happen in the next few decades at this rate. That is like the number one big worry. Climate refugees and areas with very bad like infrastructure to deal with the effects of climate change that are going to be hit the hardest. And now to the average, like, you know, Westerner who's living a fairly, you know, like comfy life, that doesn't sound as like a very worrying issue, which is why most, you know, conservatives that live in like the middle of the Midwest in their nice little suburb or whatever don't really give a shit about climate change. They think it won't affect them. It will affect them. A refugee crisis will affect you, though I'd hope that your deep down buried empathy would be enough to make you realize climate change is a problem. There's a podcast called You're Wrong About It, and it has an episode called Acid Rain that talks about how government pressuring companies, how the government was pressuring companies to find a solution to acid rain or they get illegalized. And it shows that pressuring companies to find solutions seems to actually work if they say, if you don't do it, we'll make your existing illegal. Yeah, I mean, like, that's always like government regulation realistically is the only way you solve these problems. Like, realistically, if these problems are going to get solved, it's going to be solved by extremely harsh government regulation, which can only be done by extremely radical left-wing politicians being elected. Not extremely radically left-wing, but like pretty left-wing politicians getting elected consistently and overwhelmingly in most branches of our government.
Basically unavoidable now. But what does science actually say? As of 2022, the global average temperature has risen 1.2 degrees.
And it also requires the lefties that are in power to not be subject to potential like corruption through lobbying and personal interests, which is certainly less common among Democrats than it is among Republicans. But I mean, politicians accept money from companies. Politicians accept, like, you have to. And sometimes that leads to some of the values we'd like to be, you know, instilled in our policy not being instilled in our policy.
Celsius compared to pre-industrial times. Limiting warming to 1.5 degrees was the most ambitious goal of the Paris Agreement, but we are not likely to meet it. Already with the warming we have today, hot places will get hotter, wet places wetter, and the risk and strength of extreme weather events increase significantly. Warming beyond 2 degrees makes all of these extremes more extreme. Extreme weather events more common, with more ecosystems under major pressure. Some will not survive. At 3 degrees...
What major animal do you think will be completely extinct? Like what... When I say a major animal, I'm talking like elephants, giraffes, zebras, alligator. Like, when you think animal, one of the examples you think of, by the time we're adults, what like animal do you think will be extinct? I don't know about elephants. I think elephants are probably fine. Dogs are fine. Like, I think cranes, tigers, pandas. I think pandas might be gone. I think pandas are probably like let's do an animal species death pool. Can we do that? Polar bears or pandas? What do you think will go out first? Whales? Nah, whales are doing okay. Whales are also not a type of... You have to, like, name a type of animal. What, blue whales? Beluga whales? Orcas? Like, what kind of whale are you talking about? Extinct versus extinct in the wild? Fully extinct. Not even a single one in captivity. And none known to be in the wild as far as we know. Rhinos? Okay, hold on. Dodo birds? They're already extinct. What is the... Hold on. Can we look at most extinct... 1,864 giant pandas in the world. Giant pandas are no longer endangered. They finally got those things to fuck? I was under the impression they've been trying to get those things to fuck, and none of them are horny enough to do it for like decades. Okay, I guess pandas are off the death pool.
During COVID, they all started fucking because the zoos were closed.
Oh! The pandas started fucking during COVID when the zoos were closed. Wait, are you telling me they never once considered maybe every single day having hundreds, if not thousands of people watching them and banging on the glass might have been what was keeping this extraordinarily endangered species from fucking enough to, like, reproduce and save themselves from extinction? We never once considered that pandas might not like to be watched while they're boning. Zoo revenue, though? We really are so bad for this planet. We really are just so bad for this planet. The Siberian tiger. Apparently Siberian tigers are endangered. How many Siberian tigers are there? Only 500 remain in the eastern Russia and bordering regions. Habitat loss and poaching threaten the dwindling population, but one group is focused on protecting them. Only 500 Siberian tigers left. Whooping cranes are... Only 29 whooping cranes remained in the wild in 1938. 3 years later, only 16 were left. Today, there are over 400 of them. That's still not a lot. Blue whale. There are fewer than 25,000 blue whales on the planet? Wait. If you were to ask me how many blue whales there's supposed to be on the planet, ideally, I would guess like 10,000. You're telling me 25,000 blue whales is a small amount of blue whales to exist in the ocean? God, the ocean is fucking huge. Honestly, a lot of these things can die, you know, in a short period of time. Orangutans are my favorite animals. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, I think that ocean species are probably at like the highest risk, right? I feel like light pollution and sea turtles are gonna just continuously cause like... I think sea turtles are probably like the biggest... I'm putting sea turtles on my death pool. I think light pollution is gonna lead to the end of sea turtles. I think their reproduction cycle is gonna be completely shattered within the next couple decades by light pollution.
Significant parts of Earth, especially in developing countries, might become unable to feed their populations. Heat waves will become a major global issue. Large-scale natural systems will break down. The scale and frequency of hurricanes, fires, and droughts will further increase and cause trillions in damage. Poor regions and subsistence farmers will be hit the hardest. Hundreds of millions of people will need to leave their homes. In the 4 to 8 degree range, the apocalypse begins. The hothouse Earth, where things change so quickly that it may become unable to support our large human population and billions may perish, leaving
the Mad Max car there.
On a hostile alien planet. A decade ago, for lack of action and perspective, many scientists assumed a 4+ degree world was our future, and a lot of public communication focused on exactly this future path. Luckily, it's much less likely that this version of the apocalypse will come to pass. If current climate policies stagnate, we're likely to end up with warming of around 3 degrees Celsius by 2100, which is scary and tragic and far from acceptable. But this is actually good news. How? In the last decade, we've seen enough progress that most scientists now think that we have likely avoided apocalyptic climate change. Although substantial risk still remains, we can pretty confidently say that humanity isn't going anywhere. Civilization might have to change, but it will endure. Which begs the question, what has changed over the last 10 years? And is this really good news?
I never believed that climate change would be the extinction event for humanity. I never believed that. I always believed that in some way, shape, or form, humanity would adapt to continue to exist. It would just be a catastrophic, you know, event, right? That was just like something that we ought to avoid, because why should we even like want to deal with any of that, you know? Like, but I never believed it would be the end of the world or the end of humanity. And I don't think anybody who takes this issue seriously ever really truly believes that. I think we all acknowledge that there's a very reasonable and yet still catastrophic set of issues that are going to occur due to climate change and its accelerated effects, that isn't just turning the world into a desert, barren wasteland like Mad Max.
The invisible shift. You probably know this story. The last decade has been an immense failure for climate policies around the world. Instead of passing comprehensive, binding bills that would meaningfully reduce emissions, we mostly did nothing. A lost decade with one negative record after another. And this story is true, and it's one reason why so many people are giving up. But it is not the whole picture. Despite the lack of climate policies and ongoing lobbying and misinformation campaigns from the fossil fuel industries, there was a lot of progress. Let's go back 20 years to see why today is so different.
Yay, Hopium.
Between 2000 and 2010, greenhouse gas emissions had grown by 24%, 3 times as much as the increase in the previous decade. Subsidies for fossil fuels aimed at promoting economic growth caused a colossal increase in their consumption. For developing countries like China and India, coal was the cheapest fuel for growth, while rich countries showed little interest in changing their ways. In 2010, many people expected these trends to continue. Instead of decreasing fossil fuel use,
China's going really hard on renewable energy, isn't it? Isn't China like going really hard on renewable energy right now? I haven't read very far into it. This has mostly been hearsay. So if I'm wrong about this and this is a misconception, please correct me. Please correct me. But I was under the impression that China is currently like leading the world in renewable energy usage, right? Glory to the CCP. Well, you can say insert country that's doing bad things that I don't like is doing a good thing that we should probably be doing too, right? Like, the argument from me would then be, hey, we should beat China in the renewable energy race. Hey, let's declare an energy war on China, and it's us racing to see who can become more reliant on renewable energy first. Come on, America #1, let's go! That's how you do it, by the way. That's how you do it. You frame an entire culture war narrative out of China versus America racing to get the better renewable energy. You get like some Trump-like Democrat president on stage saying, we are going to destroy China in the renewable energy race. Their renewable energy is gonna be nothing like clean, beautiful American renewable energy. It is going to be the best renewable. China and all the other countries, they're going to be begging us for our renewable energy, our clean American renewable energy. It is going to be phenomenal, folks. Absolutely phenomenal. Like, we need a Democrat president that acts like Trump. We really do. Like, a lot of Donald Trump's appeal legitimately was the idea that he wasn't afraid to say it like it is. If we got a Democrat, like, nominee who was serious and, like, actually had, like, a chance that, like, Bernie was the closest we got, really. But even Bernie kept the level of decorum.
Welcome to Capitol.
But he's lying? Yeah, but, like, I'm talking about the general demeanor. Like, imagine if a Democratic nominee, Donald Trump, would put down and insult the other Republican candidates. Did any of you ever watch the Republican debates when back in 2015? It was 2015, right? I watched them, and I've rewatched them, like, recently, and Donald Trump, like, would basically bully Ted Cruz on stage. He would bully all of them on stage. He would bully the fuck out of them. And Republicans thought it was great. They would laugh. They would fucking cackle every time. Can you imagine if Bernie Sanders went on stage and imagine if Bernie Sanders went on stage and, like, said to Hillary Clinton, Hillary, you look like a fucking ghoul. The American people hate you. You're not popular. Donald Trump is gonna fucking destroy you in the polls. You're not gonna win. Why are you even running? You're going to nosedive your entire campaign. People are memeing on you online right now. Just leave the race. I'm the only one who's got a chance to beat this guy. If he went on stage and said that shit, I feel like Republicans would be voting for Bernie.
its consumption would rise.
Better than usual, at least.
The next decade turned out to be very different, though. First of all, coal burning in developing countries like India has slowed down or leveled off, like in China, and it's plummeted in rich countries like the UK and US.
It's the weed. Weed is literally making me a better streamer. I'm not kidding. Like, if I get high enough, I actually, like, phase out into a trance where I just start talking, and you guys are all just keck-Wing at the end. I'm just like, I guess whatever I said was funny.
2015, 3/4 of planned coal plants have been cancelled, and 44...
And then sometimes you guys say true, and then I'm like, whew, guess whatever I said was true. This weed's good.
Countries have committed to stop building them. 10 years ago, that would have seemed like wishful thinking, but today we can say with confidence, coal is dying. It's just not competitive anymore. Because technologies we thought would remain expensive matured rapidly instead.
I was under the assumption that particularly like in Virginia and like up there in that area, there's still a lot of jobs that rely on coal, and it is really hard to get people there to vote Democrat because Democrats are so anti-coal. Isn't that like a huge battleground going on, like in areas like Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, like up in that sort of northeastern area? Yeah, I was under the impression that was a big problem. Clean coal. You're not gonna believe it, folks. Clean coal. You're not gonna believe it. Clean American coal, not China coal. American coal. I don't know. My impressions are getting worse. I need to get higher. I need to get more stoned.
Dead. Renewable electricity has shown explosive progress. In a mere decade, wind energy got 3 times cheaper. Solar electricity is now 10 times cheaper. Cheaper than coal or any other fossil fuel burning power plant, despite the massive subsidies and global infrastructure propping up fossil fuels. 25 times more solar and nearly 5 times more wind electricity is produced today compared with 10 years ago, which is of course not nearly enough. One of the biggest obstacles is the variability of
My city of Palm Springs is literally surrounded by desert, which is just dotted everywhere with solar panels and those giant windmills. Matter of fact, the area that I live in was adapted into GTA 5's map, the Mount Chiliad and desert area. You know, the area in GTA 5 with all the windmills? That area is the area right, like when you go out of town, like when you leave my town, like going off the road to go towards LA, you drive through that area immediately. And that is the area they adapted into GTA 5 for that area. And Mount Chiliad is actually Mount San Jacinto, the mountain that I live at the foot of. And yeah, it's pretty dope. I live at the foot of the mountain that is Mount Chiliad in GTA 5, the big mountain that everyone goes off. So that's pretty dope. I literally live in the GTA 5 map.
their power output.
But yeah, basically the Sandy, actually in the game, it's called Palo Springs. I live in Palm Springs in real life, but in GTA 5, they call it Palo Springs Tramway instead of the Palm Springs Tramway. So I assume in GTA 5, Palm Springs is called Palo Springs, P-A-L-O. So there you go.
Renewables need a lot of energy storage to be a reliable power source, like expensive batteries. Amazingly, battery prices have decreased by 97% in the past 30 years, 60% in the last decade alone, which will serve all kinds of green technology like electric cars.
Dog.
You might say, well,
I would like to get an electric car. That would be ideal. Lol, did he just dox himself? Shut the duck up, Xander Hall. No. Me being in Palm Springs has been public since before I moved to Palm Springs. I said that would be where I'd be moving. Listen, I'm going to be honest. As a public figure, you are eventually going to have your address doxed, and you should just be ready for it when you do. Call your local police department, tell them that you're an online public figure, and that at some point your home address may be leaked, and that people will make false emergency calls to your home, and that there needs to be something set up to avoid false calls being made and something happening. 99.9% of police departments, especially in a large city like where I live, will understand, and there will be things you can deal with it. You can prepare for it, especially if like Seattle specifically is the best American city to live in as a streamer. Seattle has set up a specific program and database that streamers and online content creators can sign up for, in which they will specifically be protected from swatting and marked in a database as a high risk of being swatted like person, and all they'll do is just call your house if a police call you if a police call is made to your home, and like ask, hey, is something actually up? And if you say no, nothing's up, they don't even come. Which I guess you could say is like a bit of a worry, but like realistically, yeah, it's probably going to be a swatting. So yeah, that's what Seattle's done, and it's worked out pretty well.
Well, that's great, but didn't Kurzgesagt's last climate video say that while wind and solar are nice, we need nothing less than a fundamental transition of our global industrial system? Yes, but luckily...
Yeah, any streamers or content creators, if you're living in Seattle, you need to go get on that shit right now. Stop putting it off. The sooner you do it, the better. Once it's behind you, you literally never have to worry about swatting again. Go get it done.
The shift goes beyond just the energy sector.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Vosh has already done that, so Vosh is safe. But, like, yeah, if you're a Seattle streamer and you haven't already taken advantage of that program and you're not on that database, what are you doing? Even if your address isn't out yet, the way you, like, when it happens, it's not like you're going to be ready for it. You know, it's just going to happen one day, and you're going to find out, oh, fuck, people online are spamming my address everywhere. I might get a SWAT call any minute, and then you're having take care of it now before it's an issue.
Throughout the economy, people are working on improving current technology to lower emissions. We're rapidly replacing old incandescent light bulbs with LEDs that are 10 times more efficient. In 2020, about 7 out of 10 new cars in Norway were electric or hybrid. In 2021, it was already 8 out of 10. And the list goes on, from electric heating and better insulation to ships traveling at half speed to save fuel. Wherever you look, you find scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs trying to solve some aspect of climate change. Enormous amounts of human ingenuity are being brought to bear on this problem, with more and more people deciding to prioritize preventing rapid climate change. Solutions for low-carbon production of cement, electronics, and steel, and innovations like artificial meat and carbon capture are in the works. The more of these technologies we deploy, the cheaper new and better technology gets. The cheaper they get, the more people use them, and so on. We can see the impact already. The domestic CO2 output of rich countries is falling without a major recession. Since the year 2000, the EU as a whole shows a 21% decrease, Italy 28%, the UK 35%, Denmark 43%. But the best news...
This is all very good, but like... I feel like a video like this is gonna give some people maybe the wrong impression, you know? I worry that, like, it was movies like The Day After Tomorrow, or like the apocalyptic over-sensationalizing of Al Gore, if you could even call it that, like that really pushed Americans in the broader world into caring about climate change and really making these pushes. Like, could it be that all of this, could it be that fear-mongering is the way that we solve this problem, so to say? Or do videos like this that say, hey, it's a big problem, but it's not apocalyptic level, is that going to make us go, oh, well, maybe it's not as worth worrying about as I thought then? Like, I don't know, maybe thinking it's an apocalyptic situation didn't work with South Park. Yeah, like South Park did the man-bear pig thing and had to apologize for it. I mean, they didn't have to apologize for it, they just did, but I mean, yeah. I can't wait for like 10 years from now or whatever when they do the apologies for the anti-trans stuff in their South Park episodes, because they realize, oh wait, this is like doing an episode explicitly claiming that gay people are rapists. Oh, fuck. Like, that's the equivalent of what they've done, essentially, if we're going to draw comparisons. Like, even that would be too far for South Park, because the joke in South Park is never supposed to be, or was never supposed to be, haha, we're bigots and being bigoted is funny. When South Park was bigoted, it was supposed to be satirical humor. And it is satirical humor. But clearly Matt Stone and Trey Parker think trans people are like deranged degenerates. And that eventually in the future, once society has become about as accepting of trans people as they are of gay people now, it's going to become very evident how misguided and fucked up their anti-trans humor was. And if they care about that issue as much as they clearly did climate change, making their sort of like tongue-in-cheek apology episode where man-bear pig's actually real and a real threat and they have to take care of it, like, they'll probably do the same thing in the future if South Park is still on. And South Park is going strong, and frankly I think South Park is currently better than it's ever been. Putting rose-tinted goggles aside and saying that the Casa Bonita and Make Love Not Warcraft generation of South Park is as good as it objectively was, I'd say South Park is currently, in terms of quality, the best it's ever been right now. But I still do have a very, very, very warm place in my heart for, like, that classic era of South Park, you know? Season 1 of South Park is unbeatable. I mean, OG South Park is good, but like if we're talking about like the nostalgic best era of South Park, for me the nostalgically best episode of South Park is a tie between Casa Bonita and Make Love Not Warcraft. Come on, guys. Those episodes are peak.
It may be that emissions are no longer necessarily coupled with economic growth. In the past...
Oh, in Imagination Land? Medicinal Fried Chicken's a funny one, but that's way more recent. Bigger, Longer, and Uncut is pretty funny. The original South Park movie, where we first get to see Kenny reveal his face and voice. That was pretty good too. Imagination Land goes hard though. The Okama Game Sphere episode I watched recently because it's so relatable waiting for Hytale. You know? I almost want to go freeze myself up in the mountains to wait for Hytale. Unfreeze me when Hytales come out.
This was an inconvenient truth. To get richer, you had to emit more, which led to fierce arguments between developing and developed countries about the fairness of reducing emissions while their populations were still poor. But in the last decade, we've seen that it is possible to increase prosperity without increasing emissions. Emissions in the Czech Republic dropped 13%, while their GDP grew by 27%. France reduced their CO2 emissions by 14%, while increasing GDP by 15%. Romania saw an 8% decrease and 35% growth.
I mean, if we invest properly into renewable energy and nuclear, then we are going to have the result of cleaner energy production and higher income. I mean, here, like, there's a lot of sort of implicit myths that we kind of have in our mind about certain things, right? One that I learned today, I did a little bit of research today just because the algorithm decided to recommend me some videos on insulin production and unironic like homemade insulin and how it would be done. Like not the Demon Mama drama, but like actual homemade open source insulin and how it's done and how it would be done. And there are people that are trying to make specific, like the way that insulin is made is you have to do research to discover a specific method of making insulin through fermentation of a very specific like strain or whatever of like the mold or whatever. I'm not going to try to get super technical with it because I don't know enough. But once a new type of insulin has been discovered and proven to be capable of production safely on a smaller grade or on a smaller scale, the hope is that pharmacies will be able to start producing insulin in small scale for cheaper than the 3 companies that currently produce all of it in the world. That's like the current most realistic hope for this. Copyright? No, most of I know what's the first company that got on board the insulin wagon? The first of those big 3 companies. It's like L or something, Ellie or Elliot. It's got a name that sounds like a human name and it's kind of feminine. I forget what it's called. Eli Lilly. Yeah, Eli Lilly. Thank you. Yeah, Eli Lilly. Yeah, Eli Lilly's original patents for insulin, I do not believe are still active. And yet there is still only 3 major insulin manufacturers in the world. And the reason for that is insulin manufacturing, in order to even be somewhat profitable, requires massive amounts of investment. And a lot of companies just and investors and entrepreneurs aren't willing to get into that because you're basically either going to be able to do what those companies did, which is take a massive risk, succeed, and then make profit by wringing people out for money for a product they need to live, that being insulin, or you produce insulin in large scale, probably at a loss, at high risk for starting your business, and it's just really unrealistic. So a lot of companies haven't done it. So the most realistic like solution right now is either massive government restrictions and capping of the price of insulin, or incentivization of pharmacies and local facilities with actual licensed and like experienced trained professionals that can produce insulin in like locally. Like that seems like it's actually a possible thing. I watched an NBC or it was an yeah, it was. I think it was an NBC documentary about it, not like the bathtub insulin or anything, but like an actual like multi-million-dollar lab with real scientists and PhDs that were doing this, and had created a slow-acting insulin that they were having inspected by the FDA. And their plan back in 2019, at least when it came out, was to try to hopefully get a bunch of like pharmacies and stuff on board with this, and hopefully they could produce it locally for cheaper. And the reason why I bring this up is the value and the cost, or the idea that like making insulin cheaper for the average person, that it would be like completely economically unviable, technically isn't really like real. It's a myth. If we actually put the effort and the investment into it and we cared enough, it would be easy to solve. Insulin isn't really that hard to make with the current, resources that our country and our scientists and our companies have access to. It's just, in terms of making a profit for a lot of these companies, not a realistic and worthwhile endeavor because it's high risk, kind of low reward, respectively. If you didn't
and
get
even
early,
the largest economy on Earth, the USA, decreased emissions by 4% while growing their GDP by 26%. Some of you may call this a numbers trick, that rich countries are just exporting emissions to poorer nations by moving the dirty parts of their economies like manufacturing. But even when we account for all of our imported goods, the numbers still look positive. It's no longer a matter of having to choose between prosperity and the climate, as it seemed to be a decade ago. Developing countries will profit from that because as rich countries pay for the expensive development of green technologies, they can adopt them more cheaply. They can skip most of the high emission phase that today's rich countries went through. We are at the point where not decarbonizing is a bad business decision. And we haven't even really talked about solutions like carbon capture.
That's actually probably like the most realistic way to solve it, right? Making it so that not reducing CO2 emissions is a bad business decision and makes corporations and whatnot less money. If we can make it like very similar to how like companies following the profit incentive means they start signaling more progressive ideas, hopefully companies following the profit incentive will lead to them adopting more, environmentally friendly policies.
In 2000, it didn't really exist. In 2022, that technology does exist and costs around $600 to remove 1 ton of CO2 from the atmosphere.
Wait, carbon capture is actually real? Dope.
As investment pours in and the technology matures and begins to scale, it's likely that these costs will plummet over the next few decades. So everything's fine then? Well, let's not get carried away. All of these processes are great, but not nearly fast enough. We're still doing way too little, and technology will not magically solve everything. We need to use fewer resources and use them longer, design consumer goods that are repairable and durable, and decrease our energy requirements. We need much better infrastructure, agriculture, and cities. It will still be hard work, especially to get the right policies passed and enacted. But for the first time ever, there are a few trend lines pointing solidly in the right direction. And now imagine if all of this was achieved without proper financial and political support, and despite fossil fuel lobbying. Just think what humanity can do when climate change finally gets the political attention and funding it needs. So is it okay to feel hopeful again? The situation is still dire and serious, so what's the point of focusing on this side of the story? The trap of hopelessness.
Oh shit.
Climate change can feel overwhelming and make your future seem bleak. The sadness and hopelessness that many people feel is real and very destructive because it causes apathy. Apathy that is only serving the fossil fuel industry that is still delaying change however it can. In a sense, they have weaponized hopelessness. We are now in Phase 4 in the public debate about rapid climate change action. Phase 1 was, climate change is not real. Phase 2 was, climate change is real, but
it's not caused by humans. Now I bet the next one is going to be, climate change is real, but it's being caused by natural effects such as us coming out of a natural ice age. And that's going to be, okay, it's not that, and man-made climate change is real, but it's not economically viable to stop carbon emissions. I bet that's going to be the line of... I've heard these arguments.
But not caused by humans.
Let's see if I'm right.
Phase 3 was, climate change may be caused by humans, but it's not that bad.
Okay, well, close enough.
Phase 4 is, climate change is no longer avoidable.
Oh, these are the people that are like doomers. Okay, I thought this was the climate change isn't the anti-fighting for climate change thing.
We are doomed, and it doesn't matter what we do.
I was wrong, I missed.
If we want the world to change, we first need to believe that change is possible. And we have an abundance of evidence that it is. Changes to our industrial system are gaining momentum. Technology gets better and cheaper. Climate change has become a key issue in most free elections. As more and more younger people move into influential positions, they prioritize climate change and work on new solutions. In 2022, most governments not only acknowledge it, but set their own net zero goals in democratic and autocratic countries. The results of years of fighting a steep uphill battle are now clearly visible. The pressure needs to keep increasing to make sure that the promises made today are actually kept. Climate doomerism is the equivalent of giving up, even though you can still prevent not just the worst case, but also mitigate most of the bad.
I'm glad he called it doomerism.
Things, make changes in time to adapt better, and prevent the poorest from suffering. That is why hopelessness and apathy are so dangerous. If the last, in many ways, wasted decade has shown anything, then it's that progress is being made, and that dire scenarios are just predictions, not our sealed fate. As of 2022, based on current global policies, we will end up in a 3 degrees world. Now it's our job to yet again prove the predictions wrong, despite how serious and urgent things are. To turn that 3 degrees into a 2 degrees, and then see where we can go from there. For that, we need hope. And we hope we gave you that today, at least a little. That you feel that things are serious, but also that you have a future. That you can have kids without dooming them or the world. That taking action today is worth it. And that despite powerful industries doing everything to delay it,
this makes me want to play Eco.
Society is changing. If you need a more concrete roadmap of what you can do personally, we're working on a follow-up video to talk about that in greater detail. Doomerism, inactivity, and weaponized hopelessness are the only trump cards left for the powers that don't want change.
That's not true. Weaponized hopelessness is definitely one of the things they're using, but they have money and political influence, and they have massive amounts, like they're literally funding propaganda networks to spread misinformation. I think that much more over people, I think the problem is probably not people that believe climate change is a problem but have become apathetic. I think the much bigger problem has to be the tens, if not hundreds of millions of people who are the victims of misinformation funded by, like fossil fuel industry, media titans like Tucker Carlson. Like, I don't know. I think that's a way bigger issue.
Don't let them win. We're still excited about the future, and we think one of the best things you can do to keep your optimism and curiosity up is to learn new things. If you don't know where to start, our friends from Brilliant.org have got you covered. Brilliant makes maths and science accessible and fun with a hands-on approach. More than 60 interactive courses like...
Get that bag, Kurzgesagt. Get that bag. Get that bag, Kurzgesagt. Get that bag. Go give like to video. Go give like to video. Go subscribe to channel. Go ring bell icon on channel. Speaking of which, if you enjoyed this video and you liked this channel, the one you're watching right now, regardless of whether you're watching live or after the fact in the form of a video segment, please consider dropping a like, both on the stream and on the video. It helps out the channel, me, and the video segment or stream out more than you even realize. YouTube values content creator community engagement more than ever right now, so dropping a like does a lot more than you even realize. It's not just like a pointless button that signals support. It actually causes the video to do better in the algorithm. It gets pushed out to more people and just generally helps my channel grow. And isn't that nice? Isn't that a good thing? And it's completely free and takes like half a second. With that said, I really appreciate all of you watching. Thank you all so much for watching. And regardless of how you supported me, whether it be through a like, comment, or a donation through my website, xanderhall.com/live, support through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, or through Patreon, or by following me on my social media, including Twitter, TikTok, my fan Discord, as well as Streamlabs, Stream Elements, or Patreon. I don't know. I'm too high to do my outro right now. Regardless of how you support me, I really do appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a good one.